Hello, everyone. I'm Chester44, also known as Fly, and welcome to this Let's Play of Pillars of Eternity. Last episode, we had a big fight where we got into Raedric's hold and slew Lord Raedric himself, replacing him with, surprisingly, his cousin. Hopefully things will go better now. I don't know if we got that much of a reward, but still, it's been dealt with and handled. I guess technically we got his sword, so that's dealt with. Now, well, we have nowhere else to go. Time to head to Caed Nua. One day. Let's travel. Alright, we've made it to Caed Nua. Just off the side of the path into Caed Nua stands an imposing figure. A tall, thick-set Almawa, clad in worn armor and peering up the outer walls of the keep. In his hand is a small piece of charcoal, and it works feverishly at taking notes upon a small scrap of paper. More than once he has to reach up to prevent his colorful cap from falling off his head as he gazes upwards. What are you doing over there? The man looks over at you, blinking in surprise. His face splits into a wide and very toothy grin, and he waves the parchment in greeting. Killing time, if I'm honest. I've already walked the perimeter twice. There are names scratched upon some of the bricks, just there. Workers and masons, I expect, carving a little immortality for themselves. He looks up at the wall again, expression fond. It's a fine keep, Caed Nua. 2 centuries to its name, and abandoned for nearly as long.
But the truly interesting part is in there, and I haven't had much luck in reaching the keep itself. I hoped to find the master of this place, a man by the name of Merwald, but it seems that he either holds his privacy most dear, or else has been devoured by his house guests.
I came here looking for Merwald as well.
Oh, truly? Then perhaps we can help one another. The grounds are infested with all manner of beasts. I've never seen the like. I didn't want to risk it alone, but you seem capable. Together, I'm sure we could manage it. And then we can both ask our questions of Merwald. I seek a great treasure, you see. Not gold or silver, but the Tanvi Oratoa. You might call it the Book of Virtues. It's a sacred text of the Rauatai, but we possess only a fragment of it. A year I've journeyed in search of the rest, and I uncovered evidence that leads me to believe the original lies just there, beneath the keep.
Why would this Tanvi Oratoa be here in the Deerwood? Precisely, that is the very question. It is a long and twisting tale, my friend, as all good chance should be. I can tell you more if you wish it in time. Let's go meet Merwald, then.
Excellent. Lead on, my friend, and I will be at your heels. Wait. Speaking of that, I ought to warn you first. Wondrous teeth, I nearly forgot. I have, at times, been followed. It began in Adir, and in Exometal they attacked outright. I believe they do not wish for me to find what I am looking for.
That's a little worrying.
I say believe, but I have been told as much by one of my would-be assassins. I paid them little mind. Humorless sorts in long robes. But it's why I bought the sword, you see. And it's only fair that you should know.
What are a few assassins between friends?
I'm glad you're not discouraged. Come then. Who knows what we will find inside?
And we have a new companion. Kana. Currently, Kana is wielding a fine S-stock and an arquebus. And he's also got Kana's turban, which gives +1 to intellect. Looks like he could do with better armor, potentially. But I think I'm probably going to have him focus on being ranged. As for his character, he has surprisingly low dexterity. Jeez. That's a pain. He is a chanter, which I think are the equivalent of bards, basically. And I'd need to look at it in order to figure that out. Let me see
Following
here.
your lead.
Yeah, it's a little confusing how this works. Chanters spend most of their time in combat speaking chants. Chants are arranged strings of magical phrases that produce different effects. As one phrase ends, its effects will linger, overlapping with the effects of the next phrase. When a chant reaches the end of the final phrase, it will loop back to the beginning. Careful arrangement of phrases can produce a powerful sequence of passive effects. So, they're a more complicated version of bards. Click on a chant to select it. Phrases clicked on the left panel will be added to the selected chant. If you wish to remove a phrase, click on the phrase in the chant. So currently, you've got emboldens allies, giving bonuses to fortitude and will. Increases movement rate and reflex of all allies in the area of effect. And drain a portion of endurance from all enemies in the area. You know what? I actually want to switch this. Increasing the movement rate and reflex means we'll be able to get into fight a lot faster. And that one will give bonuses to skills, so that would actually work out. And then if we kind of finish it off with basically damage anyone nearby, and then repeat that, I guess that could work. However, you also have some spells. Reduces damage reduction of enemies in the area of effect. Summons 3 skeletons to fight for the party. And creates a thunderous explosion that stuns and shoves enemies in the area of effect. Interesting. And field triage. Okay, how about we speak with you for a minute?
It's good to be on the road again. A wanderlust is nothing rare in the people of Rawatai, but often I think myself alone in loving the land as much as the sea. What shall we see next, I wonder?
So how are you holding up? I'm ready if you are. Tell me about yourself.
What shall I tell? I am Kana, born in the royal city of Takoa, from which rules the Ranga Nui. There. That is a solemn enough start. I am a lore chanter in the college there. Or at least a student of lore, and a chanter both.
The accent's right, but you don't look like you're from Rawatai. Do I not? I take your meaning. My family is from the Deadfire Archipelago, but I've never seen the islands. My parents traveled to Rawatai many years before I was born. They found more opportunity in Rawatai. My mother took to crafting cannons, aspiring pirate that she is. And my father's work with coral caught the eye of someone important. And then the Ranga Nui himself, the rest followed. What would you like to know? What made you leave the college?
I was on the usual path at first. Theology, the traditions, when the Gate of Great Teeth was completed. It was all my father had hoped for. The greatest commission he had ever received. But it was also a sign that Rawatai was changing, looking inward. Meanwhile, I was neck-deep in the writing of a dozen nations, marveling at all the things that lay beyond our borders.
And in so many of those books and records, I found accounts of ancient Engwith. The Iderans hold a great hunger for Engwithan relics. And why shouldn't they? It was the civilization from which the Glanfathans learned to read souls. I decided that my third degree would be in history, and that I would study the Engwithans. They were at the heart of so much discussion abroad, so many discoveries. It drew some mockery. We'd watched a deer draw itself into several conflicts with the Glanfathans over these ruins. Takoa had its own concerns. And soon I found it, a section of the Tanvi Oratoa, in an Idaran translation of ancient Engwithan script, just there, without explanation. It seemed like a gift from the gods. Tell me about the lore chanters. My eldest brother thinks we spend our days in song, weaving wreaths from flowers, but the truth is far less exciting than that. The college preserves what knowledge our people have gathered. I would have it said that the lore chanters are Rawatai, for without them we would have no beginning, no sense of how far we've come. We would forget ourselves with every generation. I'm only a student yet, but someday I'll return and tell the keeper what I learned, and she will add my verses to the chant. What is this Gate of Great Teeth? Much as it sounds, A maze of walls like the teeth of some nautical terror. It sits outside the city and guards Tokoa from invaders and storms. The storms have always been more trouble. Nui Tanri, the angry titans, throwing themselves against Rauatai's shores. Invaders, I'm not so sure about. But perhaps I'm like the man who, being dry, throws off his rain cloak during a storm. Oh, so my mother would have me believe. What's a Ranga Nui? A king. Our great king, ruler over all of Rauatai. He's led our people well, and he has treated my family very well. My father and he are great friends, as much as one can be friends with a king. Alright, other questions. Ask all you like. A chanter's purpose lies in the telling of stories. Mostly true stories at that. Tell me about Rauatai.
Ah, Rauatai. Shall I describe the pearl-white sands, the sapphire waters, the multi-hued tiles of the rooftops, like a mosaic upon the coast? Sorry.
No, don't be. You are a chanter, effectively a bard. You're allowed to wax poetic now and then. Tell me about the kingdom of Rauatai in general. It's a long journey by ship to the north, past Ixamital and across the sea. We have settled much of the Gulf and established more recent trading colonies all along the coast. We live as best we can, like anyone else. Our land is plagued by storms, and so we stand together, whatever corner of Rauatai we hail from. Otherwise, we'd never survive. Tell me about the city you're from, Tokoa.
Tokoa is doubly famed, a royal city and home to the Coral Harbor. The Ranganui's palace is there, and we've a fleet of royal ships sitting outside the Gate of Great Teeth. Every so often, you'll hear the roar of a cannon being tested.
The finest ships in Rauatai, and so the world, are anchored there, and some of our brightest minds toil away at the artillery. My mother, for instance. Myself, I have no talent for gunpowder. Tokoa is also home to the Lore College, of course, and we get a great many people traveling long distances to speak with the Lore Keeper, or else hear the chants and peruse the books. At least, that is how it was when I was younger. Things were a little different when I left. How so? You might say the winds are changing. The Pahari, they are traditionalists in a way. The Ranganui's son stands among their number. Talk at the dinner table has changed from how far a fleet Rauatai ship might sail to how well defended our borders are. How far we have turned from the old ways. Then talk turns to barring Adiran and Valian merchant ships, and things were difficult when I left. There was much arguing among the elders. I trust the king has kept the peace, but I worry sometimes that things have taken a turn for the worse. You aren't a traditionalist? Oh, I'm a regular firebrand, if you ask the other chanters. I don't see why I can't appreciate our traditions and chart a better future, but so goes the debate. Sounds like you miss home. Some parts of it. Those silver cliffs, the sea. Those at least no one can change. The day I boarded the ship for Adir, the sunrise was gold upon the water, and I nearly leapt overboard and swam for home. Tokoa has a lot of this artillery? Rauatai has a lot of artillery. We've made great advances with explosives. One of our artillery masters advised on the Godhammer bomb during the Saints' War, actually. In Rauatai itself, our efforts are more modest. Bombards, cannons. We're having some luck with mortars. You might ask my sister if you ever visit Tokoa. She captains the Ratuana. She knows far more than I do, and enjoys great fame for it. It may not be very traditional, but even the most strident demagogue won't touch the subject of artillery. They'd lose what support they've gathered. Do only Amawa live there? Oh, far from it. The Amawa arrived more recently and form the greater number, but others have joined us, so long as they call themselves subjects of the Ranganui. Some of my neighbors are Orlans, for instance. Fine people, though they care little for the sea. People here say that the coastal Amawa are a cruel people. Cruel in the same manner that Orlans are feral and the pale elves graceful, yes? Amawa conquered Rawatai long ago and drove their enemies from those lands in the doing of it. Today, the great kingdom of Rawatai holds humans, Orlans, elves, even island Amawa. What campaign of conquest says about those responsible, you'll have to ask the Adirans. In any case, yes, the reputation persists. Good if you want fighting work, less so if you would like to be a cook. I suppose that's fair. So these people who are after you. Oh, them. Yes, I ran into them in Adir. Or rather, they sought me out. In Adir, there were many people who had observed the Engwithan ruins in the Deerwood, and I spent some time conferring with experts. In the libraries, I found accounts of sites in Ixamital, and it was there I traveled next. But just before that, I found myself approached by a woman in dark robes who bade me abandon my studies for my own safety. I ignored her, of course, but I began to have the sense after that of being followed, and after that, well, one ambush on the road I could call misfortune, but 3? Who are these people? I thought it only fair to delve into their activities in turn. I found word of a leaden key, but past that it was all ravings and superstitions. I might as well have gone around asking whether someone had ever seen a whale flying through the air. Some might well tell me yes, but the validity of their accounts is questionable. You don't seem worried about this. They haven't had much luck. The last one came up on me at a dig site and slipped on a muddy beam. I tried to catch him, reflex I should think, but he went right over the side and down 100 feet. Not really sure what he had in mind, but I doubt that was it. Probably not, yeah. Okay. What is this sacred book you're looking for?
The Tanvi Oratoa. It's not really a book. It's been passed down over the years in the form of a chant. I actually found it a little strange at first, seeing it set down in stone. It's not quite the same as a song of worship, though we have paeans to the gods as well. More a kind of moral guide. It gives us something to aspire to. The, model of a virtuous citizen of Rawatai.
Why look for it out here?
There have been arguments as to the chant's true interpretation. New translations, even. But any rendition of it I find in the ruins of Engwith will predate those translations by 2,000 years. And finding it here also proves that we still have much to gain from trading with other cultures.
So, one could argue that it's like their Bible, in a way. And he's basically trying to find the first original version of the Bible. Okay.
I'd be lying if I said I'm not looking forward to seeing the look on everyone's faces when I get back. But in the long term, I just think that we can learn a lot from the Engwithians. A civilization like that is something to aspire to. A model for Rawatai as a whole, and not just its people. And I want to prove that all of this is worthwhile. Traveling, seeing the world for what it is. It's been so different from sitting in the Chanter Hall and studying books.
You came all this way just to win an argument?
More or less. It wasn't a popular theory when I suggested it. The idea that we shared the Tanvi Oratoha with some older culture, I mean, doesn't mean it's not true. It doesn't help that my family is from the Deadfire Islands. If I had a copper pond for every chanter who suggested that it's just not in my nature to conquer. My siblings, my parents, they make up for it. They build walls and cannons and ships. I've tried to explain. It isn't that I think those things aren't necessary, but if Rawatai closes itself off from trade, turns on its own people over tradition, we will fall behind. And then we'll be the ones getting conquered. I think my father tries to understand at least.
Won't it have crumbled away by now?
Much of Ingwith's writing is lost to us, but an engraving would survive. I found several tablets at the site in Ixamital. The scholar Gabranos, in particular, seems to have been fond of writing on the walls. I may have to ask you to help me carry it, if it's a large stone.
So, how about you describe this virtuous citizen?
Dutiful, learned, honest. The sticking point is loyal. Loyal to the people of Rauatai above all others. Fearless in their defense, and bold in aspiration. Tireless in battle or industry. An inspiration to one's people. But it seems it's not that far a leap from there to the idea that we must cast out foreign influences.
Yeah, I can see the connection. Is that what you aspire to be?
Doesn't everyone want to be a good citizen?
Probably. You think the Ingwithans were the true authors?
I don't know that the distinction is necessarily important. Rauatai has a long history, and our people have come from many different places. It matters less who wrote it than that I have found pieces of the verses all around the world. Wherever it came from, it will be Rauatai that decides what becomes of it. All the races and peoples of our kingdom coming together to create a great empire. You see, then, that I am loyal in my way.
I can. Alright, let's see. You're being hunted by the Leaden Key. So it seems. It's all rather absurd. What harm could I possibly do them by finding this text? Well, perhaps they don't like Rauatai. Do you know anything about this place? Kadnua is a marvel. An ugly, crumbling marvel, but even so, it's overshadowed by what it sits upon. But the keep itself can tell you much about the Adiran settlement. A very rigid people, I find. Alright, that's all we have to say there.
What?
Even though I only have 5 minutes, let's take a little more time. It's not enough time to look through Kadnua. Let's at least talk to Durance, see if he has anything more to tell us.
If doubts and curiosity please.
Let's see. I wanted to know more about the salvation. When the Adamancers tried to place animal souls into children, if you ever needed proof of their trespasses, that alone speaks to it. Why, it may have taken a god, but to put an animal inside the vessel of a child? Animancy is madness. Worse, it took too long to see the crime for what it was. I heard the first tales, the Orlans suffering first. Like they always do. Animals within animals, compounding the madness. Did you see what happened? First was a woman. Could have chalked that up to female weakness. Then the catmen. Could have chalked that up to them being animals. Then more and more. And more souls ended up at their claws. Durance's gaze hardens. I would have given anything to place them within a cage with those they saved and see what their craft shaped the craftsman. Let those children tear their tormentors apart. I can only give a taste of what they should suffer. It is meager fare for us both. Alright, let's ask something else.
I suspect the answers will seed more questions.
Tell me about Magran. Oh, you know her, you must. She's a many-headed bitch. What is your view on Magran?
She's a goddess, as fickle as they come. And with all the failings you'd expect of an empress and a whore. Too many eyes, too many wants, too much to hold on to. That's the failing of a god. More aspects than words to describe her, like most of them. A god with many nations to oversee, only serves to spread herself too thin.
Although flame rarely crosses twice, so perhaps that is the only truth she embraces. Who knows? Gods get greedy. When it comes to fire, fire is a god's hunger. What are her aspects? Durance begins to count on his fingers, chanting it off. War transforms, fire consumes, trials purify. Warfare, fire, consuming, purification, and most of all transforming. Trials as well, but all things are put to the test anyway. A trial can consume, purify, transform. They are all linked, although at its heart is the flame. And the flame is what matters. It is the source of all things. Guess they should have started with that, eh? Any fool around a campfire knows that. Without flames and fire, we would have made little progress in the dark. To hear some of the inner fires tell it around the hearth and bellows, even in the halls of Ashfall, you'd think that fire brought life to man, and that fire was Magrin. Some of the older texts say she rubbed her hands together, and they burst into flame, or another god shafted her like a poker. Ew. There are different perspectives on her, then. Mine is only one slight among many. Durance frowns, pauses, then his eyes take on an eager gleam. But here's one. I can speak to how the losing side sees her, and that should tell you enough. Let me speak to what an Aediran sees. Choose your next words carefully. The Aedirans have a proper, polite translation for her. Excellence in war. Tactical discipline. That's why they lost the fucking colony, of course. They were properly still quoting that while we had them bent across the decks. All their guns and cannons are fine, but useless when your staff is crackling light into their skulls, dispensing red gifts left and right. Aedirans call that elevation, divine awareness. Those words are as welcome as shit on one's boots, and that's all they took back with them while they were running. A lesson learned at the wrong time. Almost feel a pang of sympathy for them. Almost. Lesson? What do you mean? The title of a god isn't knowing a god, adhering to words rather than walking the path, testing yourself in the heat of it. Walk until the words are stripped away and you feel it burning in your heart. That is the lesson. That Aediran politeness, that pretty adherence to the word of Scripture as they saw it, that burned their ships, scarred them, kept them running throughout the Deerwood campaign. Divine awareness. There's no true faith in waiting to be tested. The best in battle have already shit themselves plenty, shit themselves until they're dry and can focus on the killing.
I suspect the answers will seed more questions.
I want to know more about you. Where are you from?
Where I hail from? From one of Magrin's fires. A cathedral. Ashfall. Made of blackened trees. I studied the scriptures there. The fires carved into the land. The trunks of the burnt trees. And in the factories where the rifles and cartridges were shaped. All are chapels in other devotions.
Other devotions? For Magrin, any fire is enough for worship, physical or not. A blacksmith's anvil, a craftsman's bench, all arenas where fire is waiting to be born. It just needs a spark, like an alchemical fire, or a spark to cartridges to speed them to their purpose. Their purpose? Durance tilts his head, thinking. Well, their purpose then. It was many thens ago. Beard was a little brighter than now. But yes, cartridges, guns, all had a purpose, and that purpose was punching holes in mages and letting their pompous air hiss out. Woke their kind right up and kept them staring at the ceiling in the dark instead of sleeping, that's for certain. Aloth rolls his eyes. Pompous air, indeed. A little violence as an accounting, an answer for unchecked power. Well, Magrin gave an answer for that. Magrin put soldiers and mages on equal footing. Durance nods again. Mages were troublesome in that time. Firearms made every man a mage, and a caster's pretty arcane shield was little match for them. It turned each commoner into a beast that could spit fire. It leveled the field of battle, that's for certain. Made many a mage a grave. That's kind of an argument that is fairly common in fantasy staples. Mages are often so incredibly powerful, and swordsmen have a very linear upgrade. While mages, sure, they start weak, but they get so powerful. Just wait until they get freaking fireball. But guns? That does level the playing field. Mages need to take a few moments in order to actually cast the spells, but gun? Just bam, you're dead. They level the playing field a lot. Tell me more about Ashfall. You're more curious about it than most of Magran's faithful. What else can you tell me about Ashfall? What more to tell? Durance frowns, his hand tightening on his staff again, his fingers seeming to sink into the wood. It is one of the greatest fires of Magran, the High Seat. Some say the blackest, not of evil but of ash, all that remains after fire has fed. I called it as a cathedral before. That's not the full truth of it. It's more a battlefield. It lies in the heart of the War of Black Trees, its timbers built from the burnt forest there, each timber blessed by fire, and one of Magran's greatest battles. Many of us helped shape the war effort there, with flames and firearms. What is the cathedral like? Keep troubling me and I may extend the tithe bowl for each question. Enough questions for now. Let the road keep us until the next campfire.
Eh?
Alright then. I suppose that's all we have for Durance. Alright. And with that, I'm going to end this episode here. Not the stream, just the episode. So we have a new companion, and we spoke with him for a while and learned a bit more of Durance. So it'll be interesting. Plus we have a gun on our side. Next episode, we'll start looking through Caed Nua and see what we can find in here. But that'll be in the next episode. So until then, I am Chester44, also known as Falai. That is Laniara, Idair, Durance, Aloth, and Kana. This has been a Let's Play of Pillars of Eternity, and I shall see you all next time.